This conference will now be recorded.
All right, Jose, looks like we are live, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Calvet Operation Stress Management webinar. Thank you for joining us today. I am Xochitl Rodriguez Murillo. I am the Deputy Secretary to Minority and Underrepresented Veterans Division here at Calvet, and I will be your MC today. All right, so today's webinar is going to welcome some presenters today to help us cope with this COVID pandemic. We've been doing some months of potentially working from home, maybe having kids around that were going to school in person, and now they're at home virtually. And so we're faced with so much multitasking and added additional stress and unexpected circumstances and changes. Today we have our Calvet Local Interagency Network Coordinator joining us, Anthony Rodriguez, as well as California National Guard Family Readiness Program, Jonah Johnson, and our keynote speaker, Dr. from the American Red Cross. And folks, before I continue, if you may please mute yourself. I think I hear you driving. So if you could please mute yourself if you could hear me. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, and with that, I'm going to jump into some housekeeping items. You may have received the agenda through a welcome packet prior to this webinar, as well as a brochure from the Guard Family and Service Member Support Program and our local interagency network map, our link map. As we know, with coordinators that can assist throughout the state, we have 8 coordinators, and our Veterans Resource Book with all the information of the services Calvet provides. All right, and so let's see here. Okay, and finally, after we go through all the presenters, we will have a Q&A session in which all of our presenters and anyone in the audience, if you'd like to participate as well, you're more than welcome to. Please send us your questions by chat throughout the program to our viewers, and our team will be collecting them throughout the program. All right, if you see on your screen right now, what you're looking at here is a preview of what your screen looks like. So at any given point at that very top arrow, you could scroll down and take a click on the view to view everyone, or you can just view who's talking. And you can look at all the active cameras, and that center line above the slide, you don't see it on the PowerPoint, but you can see it yourself. There's a divider line right above the PowerPoint and just below all the presenters. You can drag that line with your cursor. You can drag it down to view the presenters or everyone who's on today's program, or you can drag it up to view the slide a little bit more. Very well. And so if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to my team. Very good. All right. So to start off this program, we'd like to give you an overview of the Minority and Underrepresented Veterans Division. And joining us today to present that information is our very own Jose Ayon, Program Analyst within our division. Jose is a first-generation high school and college graduate and now commissioned officer in the United States Army. The proud son of Mexican immigrants, graduated and commissioned from the University of California, Berkeley, commissioned into the United States Army Reserve as a signal officer, currently serving as a first lieutenant attached to the 319th Signal Battalion out of Sacramento, where he serves as a Battalion S4 OIC. Jose holds a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from the University of California, Berkeley on the civilian side. He has worked for the Sacramento Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Sac State, and currently working for, of course, the California Department of Veterans Affairs as a program analyst. Thank you very much, Jose. Take it on.
Thank you, man. Thank you all for attending today's webinar. To our presenters, our partners, thank you so much for your time these last couple of weeks and months putting this together. And of course, to our attendees, welcome. Again, my name is Jose Ayon, one of the program analysts for the Minority and Underrepresented Veterans Division. Next slide, please. So the mission of the Minority and Underrepresented Veterans Division is to ensure that all veterans have equal access to their earned benefits, regardless of race, ethnic origin, religion, gender identity, or sexual orientation. We do so by promoting the uses of state and federal veteran benefits, programs, and services. In addition, we also advocate on behalf of minority and underrepresented veterans by identifying gaps in services or barriers to access. Some of the programs that we oversee in our division are the Calvet Pathway to Citizenship program, our Tribal Veteran Outreach program, our Calvet LGBTQ Inclusion program, and a new initiative which we launched this year is our Minority and Underrepresented Veterans Division roster. We'll quickly do a quick recap of each program, starting off with the Pathway to Citizenship program. In 2018, our division launched the Pathway to Citizenship program and partnered with the Governor's Office, California Department of Social Services, and various community immigration services organizations to put this program together. Throughout the last couple of years, our veterans and their families have received assistance with citizenship and naturalization services. The ultimate goal of our workshops, our webinars, and this new COVID situation that we're in is to promote and provide free legal assistance to veterans seeking citizenship and or naturalization services. A lot of folks, a lot of our veterans do not know that they actually qualify for expedited citizenship naturalization services. So again, we utilize this program to also be a referral for those veterans seeking naturalization services throughout the year. Thank you, Ricky. Our next program that we oversee is our LGBTQ Veteran Inclusion Program. Here at Calvet, our division as well believes in building a strong support system for our LGBTQ veterans and their families that promotes resilience in the face of challenges. Our program, our webinars, our events that we put together provide a platform of communication, education, and outreach to effectively supplement our role of assisting and connecting our LGBTQ veterans to resources available to them. Our team also assists veterans through referrals to service providers throughout California. Some of the workshops, some of the educational webinars that we have put together this year have consisted of our discharge upgrade, which veterans have the opportunity to learn more on how to upgrade their DD 214 and just additional information regarding that. We also celebrated the Don't Ask, Don't Tell Reappealment Act of 2011 or 2010? Yeah, so we had the opportunity to conduct a informational webinar on just the significance of such reappealment and had various stakeholders and federal stakeholders to provide information on the future of our LGBTQ veteran service members and military folks that are currently in. And in 2001, we are planning a leadership summit. Again, might be in person, can also be through a webinar, so please stay in touch. We'll make sure to provide that information as we move forward. Our third program that we oversee is our Tribal Veteran Advocacy Training Program. Our 2020 outreach consisted in focusing on identifying opportunities to assist Native American veterans across the state. Obviously, with the COVID-19 pandemic, the wildfires, we assisted with natural disaster assistance with Cal OES. In addition to that, we celebrated our California Native American Day in November and provided an informational webinar for our veterans and our community members as well. Some future educational webinar workshops that we want to provide will obviously be our Native American Direct Loan Program that is funded through the federal VA. So please stay on the lookout for that. And of course, our 2021 outreach goal plan is to outreach to Native American veterans living in rural parts of California. So being inclusive to all Native American, regardless of geographic location a big plan for us moving forward. And again, our last initiative, not so much a program, has been our minority and underrepresented veteran roster, which, as many of you are part of, we just pushed out our December newsletter. So again, it's just a great tool, great roster to be a part of, and which it will give you the opportunity to learn more about what our division, what our department is doing as a whole. Not only do we provide information on our upcoming events, but we also highlight our various divisions throughout Calvet and their workshops, webinars that they have. For example, our Women Veterans Division, CalTAP as well, our Veteran Service Division, and of course, just different information resources that are available throughout the state of California. Your information will always remain confidential, and of course, this will bring you to our website, which you will have more access to various resources, not only from our division, but Calvet as a whole. Here's our contact information, our direct line, and our email as well, and of course, the link to our webpage. Here's my personal direct line as well, email as well. So please reach out to us if we can be of any service to you. Again, we are very thankful for the collaboration with CalGAR and with the American Red Cross, but we'll also be on the line to make sure that we answer any questions. We are monitoring the chat feature, so please ask questions as you see fit, and we'll make sure to provide information as soon as possible. With that, Sochi, that's all I have for the group. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jose. I appreciate it. All right, folks, and next up we have our link from Los Angeles, Mr. Anthony Rodriguez. Anthony served as make sure I'm on the right page, thank you. Anthony served as a U.S. Marine captain, both active and reserve side, for over 8 years. He was stationed primarily in the 2nd Marine Division at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. He was an assault amphibious platoon commander and nuclear, biological, and chemical defense officer. And additionally, he served in the reserves as a motor transport and maintenance officer. Upon separation from active duty, he served many years as a regional and district sales manager serving the 5 Western states. He worked primarily in the retail sales and industrial sales sectors. Mr. Rodriguez transitioned in the nonprofit area for both Goodwill Industries and JVS in the workforce and employment and development arena in Los Angeles. It was there that he became acquainted with the work of Calvet, and he joined the Calvet team in July 2016 as a local interagency veteran coordinator. Short for us, LINK, folks, for those of you out there, and he serves the Los Angeles and Ventura County areas. In his capacity, he assists to separate active duty members, veterans, reservists, and National Guard members to obtain all the benefits and services they warrant. In this position, he often makes referrals and works directly with established service provider networks in the areas of education, employment, housing, healthcare, and mental health. He also provides leadership and advocacy representing the state and city and county affairs. His keen understanding of local, state, county, and federal resources provides veterans with the clear and simplified pathway to valuable information and critical relationships. This Calvet field agent serves in the highest geographic concentration of U.S. military veterans in the United States. That's Ventura and Los Angeles counties. He enjoys the trust, confidence, and camaraderie that develops when veteran service providers share in the rewarding work of assisting and serving those who have so honorably served us. Anthony is passionate about assisting veterans with all their needs, particularly in the area of education and home ownership. He has been married for 38 years and has 4 grown children. Thank you for joining us, Anthony. Take it away.
Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. And I just want to say that how fortunate we are to have Calvet, and Calvet has the best programs in all the United States, and nowhere do we have a program like Minority Affairs anywhere in the country that I'm aware of. So we're in really good hands, and want to thank all of you for putting this on and for allowing me to participate. So next page, please. I want to start off by showing you that this is the map of California, and as you can see, it is divided into 8 regions where individuals like myself, Links, live. We're actually asked to live in the field so that we can become acquainted with all the services and benefits that are appropriate for veterans in those respective areas. They serve as launch pads for us, And these are the names and contact information for all the individuals in the state. If you'd like to take a quick photo of these, wherever you may be in the in California, there's someone there who can help you and who has a pretty keen understanding of the local benefits. So I would recommend that you take a look at that. Next page, please. Now, we work very hard to be resource experts. There's so much information. Honestly, I can't say that I know everything or that I'm an expert, but we're working real hard at it. But the thing that I really appreciate about what I do is that I'm encouraged to join and participate in initiatives, programs, collaboratives, committees, and associations in our respective areas. So we're given a lot of freedom to join and use our time where we think we can help help veterans the best. We target often soon to separate military members that are active duty on bases, as well as veterans who are out. We also do presentations for reservists and National Guard. So we're trying to talk to as many people as we can. And we do make referrals and work directly with established service providers because we know them very well. Our goal is not to give you a toll-free number or a URL, but rather to give you the name of a trusted individual who we work with and who we believe is going to help you with whatever issues or concerns you may have. Next page, please. So what we do find is that because of the improvements on the GI Forever bill, we find a lot of veterans find themselves in the educational realm. And we therefore have a kind of a marriage with a lot of the groups there. The state of California is divided into several regions by community college districts, and we are very active with their monthly meetings. So we strongly support the Veteran Resource Centers, which are state funded. And as you can see, there's 114 community colleges, 23 Cal States, and 8 University of Californias. All of them have VRCs. We work with all of them to help the veterans during this very tough transition period as they get out so they can become successful. Next page, please. Now, this might be the best page that has the most inclusive information about what I do. Sometimes I get asked, when can I call you, or when it would be appropriate to call you? So what I did is I put together a listing of bullet points of those most common subjects or requests that I get. And if you have questions in this area, I'd be happy to help you. So first of all, what's the difference between federal VA and California state education funding? When do I use them? What's the process to start that? Next, how does the VA work? The VA is a kind of a complicated system in 3 different pillars. And where do I begin is a very common question. Also, what are the federal benefits by strata? In other words, what are the federal benefits? What are the state? What is the county? What is the city? What about nonprofits? And do you have contacts in those areas? So the links in general can help you with all this. So contacts specifically in housing, healthcare, mental health, employment, and education. Calvet has an amazing home loan program, which is a little different, but can work in conjunction with the federal VA program. So I generally field those questions, or don't field them so much as I transfer them and refer them to Brad Pedersen, who does an amazing job with us. But that's I can help you get started in that. Descriptions of a new program we have called CalTAP, which is the state's version of the Transition Assistance Program, an amazing program that we have launched recently since the pandemic, particularly virtually. I mentioned the local Veteran Resource Center contacts, and the distinction between benefits, active duty, reserve, and National Guard are often very common questions. So overall, Calvet benefits and employment are the final areas where if you have questions, myself or one of the links can help you out. Next page, please. So I'll finish with this. This is my contact information. I have a cell number here, my work cell, and my email address, and all of us are more than happy to help you out. And we look forward to working with you and participating in your success. I'll turn it back over. Thank you very much, and I'll stay for the questions.
Thank you, Anthony. We appreciate it. Folks, if you want to get another snapshot of all the services that Anthony spoke about and that you can receive help with, please visit our Calvet website, calvet.ca.gov. That's calvet.ca.gov. And of course, you can always call us or email us if you don't remember the website. Very well. So we are going to now move on to one of our other partners here from the California National Guard Family Readiness Program. We have Jonah Johnson joining us. Jonah is a U.S. Air Force veteran serving the veterans community for over 12 years in various nonprofit organizations. Most recent positions is with the Army, with the California Army National Guard. Prior positions with the Wounded Warrior Project, Farmer Veteran Coalition, and Veterans Resource Center. He helped set up the Sacramento Valley Veterans Collaborative in 2009, and he continues to support today. Welcome, Jonah. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Pleasure to present. So today, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we do, who we are at the CalGuard Family Programs. Next slide, please. And so our mission and vision, can you go to the next slide? Thank you. Our mission and vision, so basically who we are is, we're here to support the service members of the California National Guard and their families, provide information referrals. We also support the veterans community as well. So our vision is just basically having an awesome team to promote and support the mission. Making sure that we have a great team of members that know what they're doing in the community, providing resources out there. Next slide, please. So with that, we have 21 centers throughout California, and the soldier and family readiness specialists within different communities. So they are there to provide resources, referrals for active reserve, retired, and veteran within their communities. So some of the resources provided, a lot of different questions that we get are, financial assistance, education stuff, legal help, employment services, any kind of crisis intervention we can provide, and then any other community information referrals. And so we like to work within our community, find different network organizations, nonprofits, state and federal organizations that want to provide services. We get that list together so that way when we do have somebody in need, we can reach out to them. Next slide, please. And so some of the services that we provide just to the National Guard service members is when we have a deployment more than 30 days, our specialists will conduct monthly outreach to the families to make sure that they have everything that they need while the service member is deployed. And so we're just making sure that they have the resources. We're making those welfare checks basically to see if anything's out there, that any way we can support them during the deployment. We also have child and youth programs that are offered for, positive youth development for any of the dependents of the California National Guard. So those also provide resources and referrals. And then anybody advocate for any of the schools and communities. So if they're having some family members that are struggling, some with kids and behavioral issues and those kind of things, they have a lot of different resources available for that. And so next slide, please. So the Family Readiness Group is what I help maintain at the brigade level for the California National Guard. We manage the volunteer program. We do have a volunteer program, primarily a lot of service members' families volunteer with us. We also have some community members volunteer as well. If you're interested in that, there's an opportunity there to volunteer and help out the National Guard. They also provide resources and help develop our network contacts within their community. And so the volunteers, they provide a communication link between the command and families to help reduce the stress by increasing self-reliance within the community, and then connecting to our family readiness specialists and the centers that are available. Most of the centers are at the National Guard armories throughout California. And then we help the system plan the meetings and activities and events. We do a lot of holiday events for the National Guard units, do yellow ribbon events and other events during drill times. And a lot of the volunteers help provide that and help support those as well. So next slide, please. And so by now you're probably thinking, how does this tie to stress management? Part of stress management is finding the resources available to help manage the stress that you have. So for example, if your car breaks down and there's an unexpected expense to repair it, now you don't have enough money to pay for a utility bill or food, there may be a resource out there available to help reduce some of your stress, providing some financial assistance for that. So I listed a few different resources here available. And so we have our behavioral health officer, Curtis Keitensburg, is local Sacramento. There's several throughout the state, and there'll be another one coming out here soon as well. But I put the number there. So that's for any kind of behavioral health, mental health issues. If you're going through a crisis and you need to just talk to somebody, they're available to anybody that wants to talk to them. So any veteran, National Guard, service member, reserve, they're available for that. I put down the vet center as well. And so there's a lot of vet centers in different communities. They're available to you to access. Hopefully some of you are using them as well. The Wounded Warrior Project Resource Center is another resource that's good. They provide resources to any veteran at the Resource Center. So you don't necessarily have to be qualified to become a part of the Wounded Warrior Project to utilize the Resource Center. And then a couple other things for stress reduction. Mindful Veteran Project. They have a good website that has a lot of online events right now, engaging families and service members together. Give an Hour is another connection for some counseling, so free counseling out there if you're looking for that. And then lastly, the Collaborative Network meetings. One that I helped start stand up in Sacramento, Sacramento Valley Veterans Collaborative. It's a networking space for service providers that help veterans. And so that's a good way to get more resources. A lot of them are going online. They're hosted by local nonprofits in the communities. And so they provide a lot of different resources, a lot of connections there for those kind of things. And then finally, if you're wondering how to access National Guard resources, the family programs, there's our helpline. So anywhere you are in California, if you give that helpline a call, we have one of our leads will answer and direct you to a local family support readiness specialist. And so that is all I have. I really thank you for taking the time to listen to me. I'm honored to be here. And everybody, hopefully be well, be safe, and remember that asking for help is a strength, not a weakness. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jonah. That is correct, folks. And ask as many questions, make as many calls as you need to, do your research. There's no such thing as too many resources. I think we're all trying to find creative ways to get that self-care we need to get through each day. Thank you so much, Jonah. Fantastic. All right, folks, and now we have the American Red Cross Service to the Armed Forces joining us today. And I want to give a huge thank you to Raul Diaz and Patricia Perez for helping us with all of the training on this webinar. And with that, I'm going to welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Kristen Routh. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist, doctoral candidate, and certified mental health integrative medicine provider in San Diego. She specializes in helping military service members and first responders build mental strength and resilience using cognitive behavioral techniques and biofeedback. Kristen is a certified military counselor as well as a volunteer workshop facilitator with the American Red Cross Service to the Armed Forces. She is from a proud military family and feels honored to give back to those who serve and sacrifice for our country. Thank you, Dr. Routh, and welcome.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate everybody being here this morning. Just by attending the seminar and getting some new resources is a form of stress reduction for you, and I hope that you'll be able to walk away from our presentation today too with some new techniques under your belt and hopefully a joyful hour away from some of the stressors that are out there. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'll cover a few housekeeping items just to begin with too. As mentioned earlier in the presentation today, this will be recorded, so I do appreciate if you do not want to be on the recording that you can turn off your camera. Also, everything that we do talk about in here will stay confidential within us, but if there is anything that you feel is not, that you do not want to be put out there, please please limit your chat availability to, which through our messaging feature. I am a licensed therapist and am bound by confidentiality laws. However, as we know with a recording, we also have that being public. So that being said, too, I also really want you to engage today. So what that means is, rather than just sitting and listening to me talk, we're going to work through some specific techniques that you can use. So please involve yourself, please engage. If you have any specific questions that you have, please put them in the chat box as well. And I'm happy to answer as we go, and also in the final question and answer too. So we'll get started. So next slide, please. So I'd love to start with a quote that you all can reflect upon in your own way. This is by Amit Ray, an author and computer scientist and yoga master, so quite the combo there. In every crisis, the true heroism is self-discipline, patience, and strong determination. So I'd like to reflect on that for yourself and what that means for you, especially in this time of stress that we are under with COVID-19, the political climate we are in. There's so many extra stressors in our environment that we're facing. As you know, as military service members as well, that you have to show up regardless of what is going around you. That even if your stress is very great, you have a duty to serve, you have a duty to protect, and we have to have this understanding that even in this time of stress, you have a duty to yourself to show up. So as we're saying, in every crisis, your true heroic act right now can be self-discipline. It can be your opportunity to really focus on your self-care and what you can do to make your health better so that you can also help those around you in your community. Patience is a big one as well. We don't know when any of this is going to change or what it looks like in the future. And so that strong determination that gets developed by being very patient is what builds resilience. Next slide, please. Another quote here is, hope is important because it can make the present moment less difficult to bear. If we believe tomorrow will be better, we can bear a hardship today. And again, I'd love for you to reflect on that in your own way, but really take from it that hope is what we have to hold on to right now. With all the uncertainty around us, the one thing that we can hold on to is that we are getting stronger through this. We're building resilience. We have to believe that we're going to come out of this greater, stronger, better, and more, more equipped in the future. I think as service members, you can probably identify with some of the hardest situations in your life has probably built the best character in you, the most insight, the most value, the most meaning to your life. And so even in this time of a pandemic where we have a lot of restrictions placed upon us, we really have to hold on to this hope that whatever we are going through right now is purposeful for the purpose of us actually becoming stronger in the end. Next slide, please. So let's talk about stress. All of us have this idea of what stress is. And again, reflect for yourself of what stress means to you. You can even put a definition if you'd like into the chat box. But what is stress to you? Normally we hear that stress is something very negative, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed out, so much to do, so much going on. But the reality is stress is actually something that can be good for us. Stress by definition is a force that's put upon us that then creates change. So if you think about it from, y'all have been through having to take your fitness tests and challenges, I'm sure, and stress on the body of making you have to breathe harder, run faster, feeling that in your body actually creates health in the long run. Stress can be motivating too. So think about work or assignments that you have is when there's a deadline and you feel that stress to get things done, it actually keeps you organized and keeps you on track. But there is a limit where stress actually can become negative, and that's what we call distress, or something that causes a barrier into you being completely productive. You've probably no doubt heard in media and everywhere else that there are a lot of strategies right now for preventing the spread of COVID. However, we're not hearing as much about preventing the spread of distress or the spread of worry and concern. In fact, it can sometimes be quite the opposite when we're bombarded with so much information about what we should worry about that we're kind of left without that understanding of what we should be doing from a preventive standpoint. What we're seeing in the mental health community is according to the National Institute of Mental Health in included, is that the second pandemic idea of the longer lasting effects of stress is what we will likely be dealing with as a country long term. Meaning how we approach the pandemic right now from a mental health standpoint is going to determine what our next stage of crisis is going to be. And just again, by you all being here and really looking at how can you best prevent distress in your life during this time, you're already interrupting the idea that there could be a second wave pandemic of mental health disorders. So let's talk again about stress. Stress is different for everyone, as we're seeing it here, is everybody responds differently. And you can probably think about family members or friends that all have different ideas about how they're coping right now, some better than others. But what we do know is stress on the body serves a specific purpose. We have something in our nervous makeup, so we can talk about our body makeup here, called our autonomic nervous system. And that's the part of our brain and body that really just controls all that automatic stuff that we don't have to think about. So your heart beating, your muscle tone, your digestion. And that autonomic nervous system serves a really important purpose when we have threats upon us. It's the nervous system is divided into two other subsets, where there's something called the sympathetic nervous system, or what you might more commonly know as your fight or flight response. When we have a threat upon us, we have automatic things that happen in our body where we actually have our breathing engage, our heart rate engage, we become hyper-focused so that we can get away from the threat. Maybe you can think about something in your life too, where you've had a situational threat where there really was a life or death situation, in fact, upon you, and you kicked into high gear automatically to figure out how to get away from that stress. What happens then is once the stress is relieved, our sympathetic system comes in, and that's another part of our nervous system that then calms us out and brings us back into a very normal state. So it re-regulates our breathing, it re-regulates our heart rate, it allows our brain to open up to be able to look at other things and assess priorities. So we have this really, really amazing system within our body where we can respond to stress automatically, and we can also recover from stress automatically when the stress is temporary. Now, what we're dealing with right now with COVID is we have a stressor that isn't going away. In fact, it's building in other areas of our life. So we have this ongoing stress. Think of somebody continually running after you and you trying to get away. They don't let up, so you can't let up. And so your system is really getting stressed or distressed in a way that we haven't had to deal with before. In a lot of other situations. That's also why we're experiencing a lot of fatigue, a lot of burnout, a lot of mental fogginess. Our bodies are also, unfortunately, having immune breakdown right now because we're in this constant fight or flight mode that isn't going to be turned off unless we actually intervene with something specific to help us rebalance out. So again, we'll do some active techniques today that will hopefully give you that relief too. But if I haven't convinced you already, is the need for stress reduction and need for intervention in order to help balance your system is absolutely necessary. So one of the questions here is why do we think general stress is so common? And we'll explore that a little bit more in depth, but in general, stress is so common because we actually do want to adapt our bodies and become more resilient in the process. So think about maybe your time in the military too. There are probably some stressful times, I would imagine, and those stressful times helped you to learn a new skill, or helped you to learn how to work with a team, or how to figure out how to problem solve under immense amount of pressure. So stress is so common because it is actually trying to teach us lessons in how we can actually build this resilience for the long run. So I'd love for you to even reflect in your own life right now of your specific stressors that you're going through beyond just the global pandemic. Maybe there's financial stressors, maybe there's family stressors that are specific work stressors. And really think about what those areas of your life are looking like right now. And maybe we can look at some tools too that will help you address those as well. We know the military kind of construct adds a whole nother level of stress right now in a pandemic. There's even more uncertainty for deployed service members and their families with quarantine regulations, isolation, sometimes even lack of communication too. There's a whole nother level of stress that has now occurred in military families that we're seeing. Even with the reacclimation back upon return from deployment too. We have some service members that are having to be quarantined for even longer periods of time. So they're back in the States, but not actually even able to see their families during that time. So it's adding new layers of distress and uncertainty and challenges to the military population, especially. Some of the units too that are healthcare focused or even kind of the first responder type focus too are experiencing even more added stress during this time. They're having to be in close contact with the public. They might actually be in the nitty gritty of exposed, COVID populations as well. And so maybe not even having the right medical equipment at the time to be able to address these needs, or even working extremely long hours to address these things. So we're aware of this as a mental health community as well, of there are special needs in the population right now. You as veterans, as service members too, I'm sure also aware of fellow service members, friends that are dealing with specifics in new ways, in different ways than they've ever encountered in the service before. The other thing too is your stress gets heightened during certain times of the year. And so guess what we're upon is the holidays, where it usually isn't a stress-free time for any of us. We're planning finances, figuring out presents for people, planning travel, trying to figure out what family members are not going to get along around the Thanksgiving table and figuring out ways to circumvent that. So we are on top of the pandemic now in an even more stressful time that we're approaching, where different scenarios, different situations that we're encountering are making things even worse. So I'm not here to tell you that all of this is just doom and gloom. What I'm actually here to tell you is this is real stuff that we're dealing with. And it's sometimes, especially service members, it's becoming is going unnoticed, because as service members and veterans, there's almost this expectation that you're supposed to be extremely strong, not let any of this stuff, this stress stuff affect you at all. But the reality is that your population is extremely exposed to even higher levels of stress right now. So if you are experiencing any of these stress responses that we'll talk about, more reason for us to really intervene. Next slide, please. So let's talk about some signs of stress. I mentioned before how our body responds with our autonomic nervous system. We look at different quadrants of where we actually have a stress response. We feel it in our body, we notice it in our thinking, we notice it in our cognitions and how we're actually perceiving situations. We even notice with our work, our spirituality. But we'll look at some of these today. So we'll actually look I'll direct your attention over into the right-hand side of physical. Some of the things that happen physically is that we get headaches. The reason for that is the blood actually is being channeled to the most important part of our bodies in order to address the stress. So a lot of this means that if we are experiencing a fight or flight response, it gets channeled to just our basic needs. So it's our heart, our lungs, and sometimes our digestion. So our brain actually is working overtime, figuring out what neurons need to fire, what things need to be, what different chemicals in our brain need to be released in order for us to address stress. This is all going without even thinking about it. So the reality is that this is out of your control. And so some of these symptoms will pop up, like headaches, that bring to your attention another layer of stress. It's like, well, now I don't feel good on top of all this. But we have to be able to interpret it as a warning sign for us to be able to intervene, pull back, and rebalance our system. Stomach pain is also really common when we're having a stress. Reason for that is because we actually become inflamed inside of our body. It's basically a term to say that stuff isn't working as well inside. And so stomach pain, especially with digestion, isn't necessarily the focus of a lot of the times when our body is under stress, meaning that our digestion slows down, so we have less relief. We actually become more sensitive to some of our allergies too that we're already exposed to. So if you're feeling during this time of especially during COVID, where we're now stuck indoors a lot more, we have less physical activity that we're engaged in, gyms are closed, we're keeping that social distancing, your body is actually having quite a bit of of reaction response to the stress that you're under. Tense muscles, I think, are pretty common too, and that's something too where if you even check in with yourself right now of how you're sitting. We're all in front of screens right now. We're not used to this. This isn't what we were built to do. We have to actually teach ourselves a specific posture in order to sit in front of a screen. And so I'd love for you to just check in with your body right now and even see, are you holding tension anywhere? Are you hunched over? Are you, slammed into a little corner in your room because it's the only place that can accommodate your computer and your feet are in a weird spot? We really want to look at how can we relieve the tension in our body with the circumstances that we're under. I mentioned earlier too, fatigue. Fatigue is a common one. When we're running our system, the only direction that we're running in is really into the ground at some point if we're not allowing ourselves to recover. Some other areas we can look at too is, I'll draw your attention over into the left-hand side of thinking. When we're in this fight or flight response, or we're in this really hyper-stressed mode, is our brain is built to focus just on the thing that needs the most attention. So again, service members, you can probably relate to this. If you're tasked with something under stress, if a bad guy is coming at you, you're not going to be thinking about your shopping list, or maybe that bill that was not paid, or thinking about your childhood experiences. You're thinking about that bad guy is coming at me and I really have to figure out what to do. So our thinking right now applied to a chronic stress state means that it's all over the place. Rather than just honing in on one thing, what do I need to do to respond to the bad guy? We're looking at so many stressors around us that there's a lot of bad guys. So our brain is going all over the place. There's memory issues, concentration issues, increased worry because we can't actually stay focused on one specific thing. So our brain that has thoughts that are popping all over. We become preoccupied sometimes too with a certain event. That's the brain's trying to allow your focus to go into one thing specifically to give you relief, but we can actually become preoccupied. Worked with a service member that was discussing how for some reason he can't understand why he's so preoccupied with fixing things around the house right now. And partly it's because when things are feeling out of control, our brain becomes hyper focused on what can we do to fix things. And maybe that's just in our immediate environment where we become very preoccupied. We also have something in the brain called the negativity bias, where we focus on the negative. This is actually supposed to help us. If we think about it evolutionarily, if we go way back in time, and when we were walking around cave people trying to find stuff to eat, if we encountered, let's say, a bush with a berry that made us sick, we would want to remember, wow, that bush made me sick. So your brain is going to hold on to that. That bush made me sick. That bush made me sick. I'm not going to eat that ever again because it made me sick. So the brain is wired to actually focus on something negative in order to protect you from future experience. Now, fast forward where we're not cave people anymore, we are actually still wired the same. So even though we don't have life or death situations constantly upon us, in the same degree that we have had historically, our brain still wants to hold on to every negative situation possible in order to remind us for the future to avoid that situation. Now, if we think about what's happening right now, we have a lot of negativity fed our way. If we're on social media, if we're on news, if we're even just talking to friends, very few conversations are how wonderful everything is right now, how joyous and how easy life is right now. It's very much focused on the negative. And so our brain attaches to that and gets reinforced over and over and over again about how awful this situation is. More reason why, which we'll also address soon here, is why we need to combat that with focusing on things that are actually going well right now, focusing on the aspect of what we're learning, what we're building, what we're creating that's stronger. There are a lot of opportunities right now with COVID that we sometimes are dismissing. Yeah, we could look at it as we're all stuck inside at home, or we could say, what a wonderful opportunity for us to bond with our families. What a wonderful opportunity for us to learn new skills, even though, groceries aren't as readily available. How awesome is it that I'm learning to be a top chef in my kitchen and try to figure out what I can actually make with what I have? So there's ways of us to actually reframe our thinking in order to override this negativity bias. If we look at emotions too, the signs of stress come out emotionally too, which we're pretty familiar with. And this often is the feedback that we get from others is, man, you're cranky, you're in a bad mood. Why are you so angry? You're really irritable. We might feel that in ourselves too, or we feel moody, we feel depressed, we feel hopeless. Those are signs again where our thoughts have now influenced we can go back, our negative thinking has now influenced our feelings as well. And so now we're having these feelings that don't really feel congruent with who we are, but they're very big feelings. And those very big feelings that then are reinforced over and over with negativity becomes solidified in almost our new personality at times. Behaviors then also get affected too. So if we're looking at our thoughts are occurring, our emotions are now not so great, then the choices that we make behaviorally are going to follow that same pattern and not necessarily serve us in a positive way. We might start to withdraw even more. If we're already thinking this is the worst thing in the whole wide world, our emotions are this is really hopeless, then why would we go and do things that we actually enjoy? We start to withdraw more. We start more arguments with people. We have basic changes that are occurring in our sleep, in our appetite, in our even clenching our jaws, teeth grinding, stress situations that come at night. Substance abuse is also through the roof right now. And I can tell you this as a practicing mental health clinician as well, is that we have access behind closed doors now to coping mechanisms that aren't healthy. Substance abuse to just kind of check out or drink more or drink all day long too is occurring in a really, really big way. But again, it's not helping our situation. It's not building that resilience that we really are trying to build. It's actually detaching us from our resources for strength. The other thing that we don't think about very often, but is a big prominent sign of stress too, is our loss of spirituality, our loss of purpose, where we actually start to question, what is the meaning of all of this? What is the meaning of life? When our churches are closed or stressed in being able to meet, or other places of worship as well, we sometimes lose touch with what usually keeps us grounded and keeps us hopeful. We can even go as deep as questioning our belief system too. Is, if you're doing all the things that you believe in as being purposeful and healthy and happy, why are bad things happening? And so from a spiritual component too, if you start to feel distanced from that aspect of your life, that can be a big sign of stress. What we do know, though, is in order to make meaning of everything that we're going through right now, we have to believe in something bigger. We have to believe whatever that bigger thing is, even if that bigger thing is you're just creating a more resilient body in the process. We have to believe in something bigger in order for us to keep going. And then one of the bigger signs too that is really obvious as in stress is you're not as productive. Your work decreases, your motivation decreases. Task avoidance, meaning things feel a lot bigger right now. When we're already talking about all these extra stressors and distressors on your body, it sometimes feels really laborious just to show up to work, really laborious just to log into another Zoom meeting, really laborious to even turn in your time card. And so there can be things that just should be pretty easy to do that actually feel even more frustrating and more on the burnout scale. So these are signs that I, again, really want you to be aware of, not just like, oh, I feel stressed. How are you experiencing it? How are you experiencing it in your life? Is it more negative thinking? Is it detachment from spirituality? Is it more physical? Because these are the areas where you'll need to put your specific focus for intervention. Next slide, please. Oh, next slide when you're able. Thank you so much. So here's a little thermometer. This I use a lot with children that I work with, but I think it works great with adults as well. If we think about a thermometer, and all of us are probably pretty familiar since we're getting scanned with our temperature all the time too, is we look at a thermometer as being a rating scale that can move around once in a while, where if we look at this thermometer, 0 means you are not stressed at all. Everything is peachy keen, wonderful in life. You have no worries whatsoever. 10 is you have the most stress you've ever experienced in your entire life right now, ready to blow. And what we look at in between is that there's a lot of variation, a lot of ranges of stress. We all have different tolerance levels of stress too that we experience that can move and throughout the day and be very fluid. So check in with yourself right this very moment. So hopefully I'm not stressing you out, but check in with yourself right this very moment. And in your perception of where do you fall on the stress scale? Where are you right now? Are you, kind of neutral, 5, just kind of hanging out, kind of feel that buzz, but at the same time, not really too stressed? Did you have a really rough morning and you're like a 8 or 9, 10? Like, oh, I really am glad I'm here because hopefully this lady will be able to give me some resources and reasons to calm down. Or are you one of the lucky few that are just living your best life ever and are feeling 1 or 2 right now because you got all your shopping done already, everything's fancy and wonderful, and you're ready to go. So just check in with yourself. This is something too that the reason I bring this up is a visual is really helpful for us when we're talking about stress. We go back to that negativity bias in the brain that wants to attach to negative experiences. It wants to attach this idea that you are stressed out all the time. Reality is that we're not actually stressed out in the way that we're thinking about all the time. We usually have some moments of relief throughout the day. And I appreciate the people that are in our chat box right now contributing to where your stress levels are at. I'm glad you're at a 4, Raul. That means I'm doing my job, so that's good. But I'd love for you to kind of think about that throughout your day and check in with your thermometer too of what is actually really bringing high stress into your life, what's more neutral and what's lowering your stress. The lowering and neutral activities that you're engaged in are obviously ones that you want to do more of, especially during this time of isolation. This is an activity, again, that you can use with your children as well. If they're like, Mom and Dad, I don't feel good, I don't feel like myself, have them plug into this idea of a thermometer and being able to rank their levels of stress. And next slide, please. All right, so let's get into the good stuff. So we're going to focus on some relaxation exercises that are simple, things that you can do throughout the day in order to adjust your thermometer, but are really working on leveling out that nervous system that we're talking about. So we hear about deep breathing, you know, it's like, oh, you're stressed out, just deep breathe. But what does that actually mean? Deep breathing means that we're using our body in the most effective way possible in order to balance out our autonomic nervous system and be able to have our brain switched over into something that is more positive, more focused, and more beneficial for our overall well-being. So what I'd love for you to do right now is go ahead, if you feel comfortable, is place a hand on your heart, it doesn't matter which one, and place another hand on your belly. It's your diaphragm, which is basically below your belly button or around where your belly button is. And what I'm going to do is count to 5, and I want you to breathe in for 5 counts and see what happens. So here we go. Take a deep breath in. We breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it for 1, 2, 3, and breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so check in with yourself, because that's not normal breathing. That's not normally how we breathe, right? Is we're not normally conscious about what our breath is looking like or how we're doing it. And what I'd love for you to pay attention to is, was your chest rising more? Was your belly rising more? Were they rising at about the same time? Did you feel like when I suddenly asked you to hold your breath that you are gasping for air and the tension built? When you were releasing your air, did it feel that it was really forced and really fast, or did it feel nice and smooth? And so knowing these things, let's go ahead and try this again, okay? Is that place that hand on your heart, place a hand on your belly, and we'll breathe in again for a count of 5. So here we go. Breathe in. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold it. 1, 2, 3, and breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Good. So what we want to focus on is when you're breathing out, that you're forcing all of your air out as you draw your belly into your spine. Almost think of it as like a pump, where you're breathing in, you're expanding this air, and then you're forcefully putting it out. Not just completely in one big sigh, but forcefully, meaning that you're really trying to get that stress out of your body. You could even visualize this, that the air that's coming into your body is helping to cleanse your body, getting rid of the stress, and exhaling gets rid of any extra stress that's coming out of your body. So continue to breathe this way as I continue to walk you through this. When you've breathed all of your air out, then you slowly breathe in. So I know we're thinking, oh, good air coming into the body. Let me suck it all up real fast. That actually creates more tension. So we want to slowly breathe in, forcefully breathe out. So slowly oxygenating, getting all that good air into the brain, and then exhaling, getting all that waste material, that stress material out of the body. We're really focusing on expanding your body, filling your belly with air, and then forcefully getting rid of the excess out. And you can do this without placing your hand on your heart or your belly too if you feel more comfortable. You could sit in a meeting if you're stressed out. You could sit in a family dinner if you're stressed out, and really just focus on letting your chest and belly rise as you breathe. Think about consciously holding it for a few counts and then exhaling fully and completely. So again, what we're doing here with conscious breathing is truly oxygenating our brain and oxygenating our bloodstream too, so that the oxygen is getting to places in our body where we need it the most. When we're kicked back in that fight or flight response, a lot of our oxygen isn't flowing through our body in the way that we want it to. It's really focused on, again, just getting into our lungs or just getting into our muscles so that we can get away from a threat. But we actually need to oxygenate our entire body in order to get rid of inflammation, but also to help us have an overall sense of well-being as well. So I'd encourage you, as we continue today, did you think about your breathing? So we've talked about posturing and sitting in it with a good posture. Think about your breathing, especially if you're feeling tired or fatigued throughout the day. A lot of the times it means that we're shallow breathing, we're kind of hunched over, not having that great posture. So give yourself a few opportunities to really sit up, check in with yourself, breathe big, and let it go. Now, as silly as this might sound, I actually encourage you, if you are feeling an extra level of stress, to set reminders in your phone of when to check in with your breathing. So you can actually, get your smartphone, set some alarms to go off a few times throughout the day. When those alarms go off, is just pause for a moment and check in with your body. See, are you breathing? How's your posture? Take a few moments to do this extended breathing exercise so that you're able to level out your system. Again, with this idea that we have this constant stress upon us, we need to take just as many breaks throughout the day in order to level out our system and stay in a good place. Next slide, please. So here's another one too that we can do pretty easily as well, that allows us to focus and also incorporates our breathing as well. So you can all hold out your left hand. Again, if you don't want to be on camera, you don't have to turn your camera off, but I would encourage you to try this. And you're going to hold your left hand so that you can see it. So facing it towards you. And what you'll do is you'll take your index finger on your right, and I want you to run it along each finger. So you'll start at the base of your wrist here, and you'll run it up your finger, and you'll run it down your finger, back to your palm, and you'll run it up your finger, your next one, and run it down your finger. Good, and just keep going like that. Go nice and slow. It can be a light touch so you can actually feel the different sensations that are happening on your palm and on your fingers. Our palm and fingers have a lot of sensory nerves that are there. That's why, when you pinch your finger in the door, it hurts so bad. But it's also why we actually feel really good when we're holding hands or we're experiencing some softness too. But what this activity allows us to do, and you can continue if you'd like, you can even put your hand down so it's more comfortable that it's right in front of you, and you're just tracing as you go. I want you to inhale slowly as you move your finger to the edge of your finger on your palm. So we'll try that. So start at your wrist, and we'll take a deep breath in and breathe in and move towards the finger. And then once you get to the end, hold for a second or two, and then exhale as you move back down that finger back towards your palm. And we'll do that again. So breathe in as you trace all the way up to the edge of your fingertip. Hold it for a moment and then breathe out as you come all the way back down to your palm. And go ahead on your own pace of just continuing to breathe like this, tracing your palm and coming back down, slow and easy. What this allows us to do is tie in a couple different sensory experiences into our bodies, where we're getting the benefit of the oxygen that we're having with deep breathing, but we're also getting a nice sensation of feeling of touch, a feeling of slowness that's occurring, a feeling of hyper concentration on the activity that we're doing that allows us for even a few moments to get rid of the extra stressors that are all around us, allowing us to focus very intensely on something good and positive for the moment. But again, this is an activity that you can check in with yourself throughout the day and do. You can do it before bed. When you feel that heightened stress that's coming into your life, is pausing for a moment. Take a few minutes, just to kind of sit there and trace. You can even do it again while you're in a meeting, listening to someone talk of almost in a fidgety way, but a focused fidgety way to allow yourself to calm your nerves and bring yourself back down. Next slide, please. So here's a good list too of things that you can try to reduce your stress. So I encourage everybody on your phone at some point today, or even on a post-it note or something that is tangible in front of you, to write down things that you could do in the moment to feel better. And I know, again, this might sound really simple or maybe even silly of what you could do, but in times of stress, we actually forget the things that we actually enjoy doing and can tap into on a pretty regular basis. One of the things I know for myself is I have a really sloppy 80-pound English bulldog that's normally snoozing behind me. I kicked him out so you wouldn't hear him snoring today. But he's somebody that comes up, he senses my stress, he comes up, lays by me, and suddenly, I'm petting him and I'm realizing like I'm starting to feel better. I'm starting to calm down. And so those sort of things we have to remind ourselves of. That we have a lot of things around me that a lot of things around us that are available to us to either distract from the distress around us or allow us to be able to tune into our immediate needs. So breathing, we've talked about. Prayer and meditation is great. Science extremely supports the idea that when we are focused, whether it is through prayer, meditation, or that sort of focus, that we're tapping into a different part of our brain that is more resourceful. So if we're actually training our brain to become more resourceful in times of stress when we are praying or meditating. You can massage your face, your head, your shoulders. If you have somebody that really likes you, maybe they could also massage you too. And again, from a COVID standpoint, just make sure your hands are clean and somebody else's hands are clean too before you're touching your face. You can call or text someone who makes you feel good or gives you a good laugh. Right now, we're limited in our communication. A lot of it is very virtual right now. And so, being able to text with the idea of that you just want to text some positive stuff, send some funny jokes, send some memes, allow that relationship with the people that you do have that make you feel good, take a new life of its own of being able to connect with them in the moment. You can take a hot shower or soak in the tub. Again, that's helping our physical side of stress soothe and calm. You can listen to music. We know that music has a really strong impact on the brain in a way that it actually either motivates us or can discourage us. So think for yourself right now too that there's probably certain songs that just really resonate with you for some reason. Maybe they bring up good memories from the past, or maybe they're just really, really good beats and they bring some energy into your body. Maybe there's some other music too that just mellows you out. Whatever it is, think about what your internal playlist is. And again, I would encourage you, take some time, come up with your COVID playlist on your phone of either things that just make you feel good in the moment. They get you out of your head. They get you moving and dancing and grooving, or they bring you into a very, very calm and centered space of being able to really just listen to those and feel yourself completely relaxed too. And if anybody has some good music suggestions too, feel free to throw them in the chat. Maybe there's some things that without fail mellow you out into new artists that somebody else hasn't heard of before. So feel free to engage in that. There's also a lot of stuff online too that you can look into. YouTube clips, other meditation clips, sound wave therapy too is a big thing too that affects different neural parts of your brain. So you can definitely look into all of those things as well. Reading is another great escape, getting yourself into a good book or something where you're learning as well. Oh, I see Raf over here. Jimi Hendrix. Awesome. I love that. Jimi Hendrix, I think, can single-handedly fight our COVID pandemic. So there we go. Oh, the Star Spangled Banner. Absolutely. Love it. Good. Keep those thoughts going as I continue to talk here too. Another thing too, just thinking about pleasant memories. When we're talking about that negativity bias, when our brain naturally has that tendency to go back and think about negative stuff, we have to force ourselves to actually think about positive stuff. So reflect on really fun times. Look at old pictures, that really give you a good sense of joy. From the service aspect too, is think about tours that you've been on, or platoons that you've worked with, or different groups that you've been a part of, friends from the past, that those jokes that you have that really brought you together. You can reflect on those and think about good times. Starting a new hobby is a great thing to do right now too. We have the time, a lot of us, behind a closed door, so might as well learn to cook, might as well learn to play the guitar that you've always wanted to do. It gives us a positive aspect of us being able to move our thinking in the direction of productivity. You can draw, you can knit and crochet. Knitting is interesting. Is it actually, there's a lot of empirical support that knitting actually helps a part of our brain too, that through repeated patterns of movement helps to level and soothe us out. So if you want to learn how to knit and create your own sweaters this year, by all means, go for it. I think your friends and family can appreciate your handiwork, but it also has a double benefit of helping your overall system. But I won't go through all of these, but I just want to bring them to your attention that there are many, many things that you can do. And again, I encourage you, make that list of yours, add to this list that, take a screenshot of this, even keep it in your phone so that when you're feeling at a high stress level, that you were then able to say, all right, you know what I'm going to do right now? I'm going to go and play my guitar, or I'm going to go and read that book. Even just having a warm cup of coffee or a cup of tea can take you from a stress place into a more relaxed place pretty quickly. Next slide, please. So let's talk about sleep. And I know this came up earlier in the chat, I saw too. Sleep is one of the first things and biggest things and probably the most important things that we have to address because it is heavily affected when we are stressed out. The reason why our stress gets really thrown off course in one of two ways, either we sleep more or we sleep less, is because that stress response we're talking about in the body. If the body and brain are sensing a threat around us, the last thing it's going to want to do in the moment is shut down. And so that means that you're not going to get very good sleep. So the brain, your body might be fatigued, but the brain is already alerted to there's threats around us, threats around us, threats around us. Let me go ahead and wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning and think about all the bad stuff that's going on and all the things that I need to prepare for and all the stuff that is making me nervous, because the brain thinks that it's actually helping you out. It's like, get off your butt and start thinking about all these, how to problem solve, as opposed to letting yourself relax. Opposite can happen too, is that your brain might be so overwhelmed and so overworked that you oversleep. And what will happen there is that you're not actually falling into, oh, I'm reading someone's mind. Oh, Kurt, all right, well, pay attention then. Awesome. So I'm looking over in the chat here and I love what I'm seeing. So with oversleeping, what we're doing there is we're actually trying to avoid the stress that's around us. So our body has said, okay, well, I'm doing this fight or flight response thing. I'm really exhausted. I can't come up with any problems. Let me just avoid the world. And so we collapse into this oversleep, but it's not restful sleep. It's just taking you away from the stressor. It's not actually restoring you. So you might have heard it. We have different levels of sleep, different waves in our brain that we tap into throughout the night that offer restoration to our organs, our brain, our body system. It helps actually even to cut out some of the stuff that we don't need to think about anymore. And so we allow ourselves to sleep in order to get ourselves into a better place. I think I might have lost the slide here. I'm not sure if with the slides there, but thank you so much. Keep going back here. So with sleep, if we all know that it's disturbed, what can we do about it? So there are some really good sleep hygiene, we call it, sleep hygiene moves that we can make. So one of the things is setting your sleep schedule. So, I know it's kind of an ongoing joke with the pandemic right now is what day is it even? What time of day is it even? We had our time change and now it feels like midnight at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And so our whole body is feeling really off and shifted and not really knowing what time it is. And so we have to keep our sleep schedule as strong as we possibly can, even on weekends, even on holidays, so that our natural rhythm within our body doesn't have to feel as altered. So I'll go back a little bit. Is we all have this thing called a homeostatic balance. It's basically our body's natural rhythm that when it gets into a rhythm that it can depend on, it loves it. It's just this flow of, I know when to wake up, I know when to go to sleep, I know when to put the demands on my body, I know when to relax. What happens though is when we go to sleep at different times throughout the week or wake up at different times throughout the week, is that homeostatic rhythm gets completely thrown off. So think of it like this. It'd be the difference between letting your car go on auto drive, of just letting it cruise down the highway, versus going down the highway and then suddenly slamming on the brakes. then trying to start it again and going forward and slamming on the brakes again, is that this tug of war that it experiences in the car is stressful. Same thing happens in your body when you're not free flowing and free driving and kind of on this autopilot of allowing yourself to have this rhythm take over. So sleep schedule is important. I know, again, as service members too, you know that probably during your time in the service, a lot of times your sleep schedule wasn't very regular. You know, when you're doing patrols at night or having to show up, that really throws it off. So if you can reflect on that, that probably wasn't your most healthy feeling time, you know, because you are thrown off that sleep schedule. So now, if you do have more control over your sleep patterns, please allow yourself to get your schedule in check of going to sleep and waking up at the similar time every single day. And I appreciate, I'm going to look over here in the chat real quick because I see some good activity too. So cool. We have a motorcycle rider that's saying that helps balance out and center. I love it. I love it. You walk around really tired all the time. Yep. That again that's that response that we're talking about too, of when you've run your course of your stress response, you're not actually getting restoration. So purposely lulling yourself into a good sleep pattern, again, with some other healthy techniques too, will hopefully help to reduce some of that fatigue. Mindful meditation, absolutely. Many free resources too online. Appreciate that too. Mindful meditation, even at nighttime too, can help center and ground and get that spiral that we're often in our brain to shut off for a bit. And coffee does not help. You are correct in that. So if we look on our little list here too, pay attention to what you're eating and drinking. So caffeine is a stimulant, but it's also a stimulant that we adapt to. And so if you feel like you've had a cup of coffee and you're getting a perk from it, eventually that perk is going to go away. But the brain then starts to rely on that stimulant being the only thing that will give you a perk, as opposed to just naturally allowing yourself to level out. So paying attention to how much caffeine you're drinking, also what time you're drinking. Caffeine stays in the system quite a while, and so cutting yourself off at an early time, and we're talking midday, is ideal for being able to let your system naturally calm down in order to go to sleep. Another thing that with eating and drinking too, if you're drinking or eating a lot right before you go to bed, that's a lot of extra stress on your digestion system. If we think about it, our digestion actually wants to kind of just calm down and do its thing while we're sleeping, as opposed to have to over process things that are really, really hard for us to digest in the evening. So think about what you're eating, that you're actually having more of even a lighter meal or something that's causing less stress on your system too before you go to bed. Alcohol is another one too. I know a lot of us enjoy a nightcap or a glass of wine right before we go to sleep because it does help bring our nervous system down a little bit. However, alcohol brings our system down, but doesn't bring it down into the level where we actually are getting restorative sleep. And so what happens is that we fall asleep, but we're not actually getting into that REM cycle or the restorative cycle that makes us feel better when we wake up in the morning. So even alcohol can have a really negative effect on our sleep patterns. And so even looking at if you can follow some good sleep hygiene where you're limiting the amount of alcohol that you're having throughout the day and in the evening too, you might find that you wake up more restored because you don't have that stress on your body. Monitoring your use of screens is a big one. Now, we're in a pandemic, obviously, where we are all social distanced, and we are even sitting in front of a screen right now. A lot of our life has been transferred from being on the outside to now being in a little box or on our phone throughout most of our day. What happens with screen use, though, is this artificial light that's being fed into our eyes activates areas of our brain that associate it with being daytime. And so going back to that natural cycle that we have, when we have light shining into our eyes, the brain says, oh, it's bright out, it's daytime, I need to be really alert because I need to do all the things during the day. So when we're on our screens so much, our brain and body are actually getting bombarded with it's go time all the time. It's always bright, it's always sunny, it's always time to be productive and do things. We know, though, that we can't always be productive throughout the 24 hours, and we actually shouldn't have that much exposure into our eyes as far as light goes as well. So monitor your use of screens, especially in the evening. If you're one of the late night FaceTime or Facebook scrollers or news scrollers, or finding the end of the internet at 2 a.m. in the morning, try to put that away. try to go and do something meaningless and or taskless in general. What I mean by that is go fold your laundry. When our brain actually does something repetitive, but is not focusing, that does not have the screen attachment to it or the light bombardment, our brain falls into this natural rhythm and allows us to relax. And so one of the things, if you're experiencing insomnia or can't go to sleep, put the screens away first and foremost, and get up and go into an activity that actually is really boring, is allow yourself to fold your laundry, organize your wallet, do all those things, organize a junk drawer in the kitchen. And chances are is that your brain and body are actually going to fall into more of a restful pattern. Another thing too, when you are tossing and turning, check in with yourself too to make sure that your environment is actually a healthy environment for sleep. So going back to the light idea, if you're in a room where you have a lot of ambient light, maybe lights from the street, or somebody else awake down the hallway, or even just a lot of electronics that have all of the fun little glows that they put on in the evening, that's extra light that is actually causing you some stimulation to some degree. And so trying to make a room as dark as possible, or even getting an eye cover can be really helpful. Check the temperature of your room as well. With temperature, if it's too hot, again, it has the same idea that our body feels stimulated. Our body feels hot, almost like it's working out. And so the idea is, okay, I'm working out, I'm using energy, I need to stay awake. If it's too cold, it can be uncomfortable, and then we can actually keep ourselves awake because we're actually shivering. So the idea is finding a good, comfortable temperature that is more on the cold or chilly side, that allows your body to feel enough warmth to be comfortable, but not too much warmth to be stimulated, and not too much cold to where you're shaking. So really check yourself out too, if you're in your bed too, of what actually is a comfortable environment for you. Mattress makes a big difference too, obviously. The type of pillow, they make different types of pillows too for different types of sleeping patterns. There's actually side sleeping pillows, face down pillows, all sorts of things. So something to maybe put on your Christmas list too, if you realize that you have a pattern of sleep or a posture of sleep that you typically fall into. The other thing I mentioned my dog earlier is think about your pets too, and whether or not they're also your bed buddies and they're jumping around in your bed during the night. Because even if you're asleep, they might be doing the cha-cha dance moves all over the bed throughout the night, because animals are actually built to get up every few hours from a safety perspective to make sure they're safe, rather than just sleep an entire 8-10 hours. And so they're expected to get up, move around, toss and turn, and that can actually affect the quality of your sleep too. Even if you're not fully waking up when they do that, it actually can be an interruption as well. Also, if you have another partner in your bed too, is think about their sleep hygiene as well. If they're on their screen and you're trying to get some sleep, or they're tossing and turning because they're too hot, it's going to affect how you are as well. So from a sleep perspective, again, it's so important for us to really look at what's going on with our sleep and really stick to a solid plan so that you can restore. Again, with the pandemic as well, is that we need our immune system to be as strong as possible. One of the best immune builders is getting enough sleep so that your body can do its thing, restore, build that resiliency, as opposed to putting it through even more stress when it's trying to actually restore. Let me take a quick peek again at the chat here too. I'm a 6 to 8 cups of coffee a day. What is a good substitute? Very good answer. So if you're 6 to 8 cups of coffee a day, your body probably is pretty adjusted to caffeine, and wouldn't recommend that you just go cold turkey on that one. What I would recommend is maybe weaning off of watering down your coffee. You can actually switch to half coffee, half decaf, and then slowly wean yourself off of that down to where you're still getting the same aspect of drinking something hot and warm, but having a less caffeine content. You can also try tea too, that some teas have a less caffeine content as well. The other thing that I highly recommend is, if you are a coffee drinker, for every cup of coffee that you drink a full glass of water. Most of us don't do that. We think, well, liquid's liquid, so coffee's coming in. But coffee is a diuretic, and so it does have you urinate a lot more and actually dehydrate you a lot more in the process. So try that with coffee too. Look at what else is going on nutritionally in your life as well. Are you just running on coffee as your only source of breakfast? Maybe think about, can you get something more substantial in the morning as well that allows more electrolyte? So even drinking electrolyte water can be helpful too as a good substitute. 1 cup of Death Wish coffee is a great substitute. I'm not as familiar with Death Wish coffee, but it sounds really interesting. So, so thank you for that tip too. And I appreciate too that I go to see a counselor myself and barf out anything that's on my mind. I let my counselor help me figure it out. Awesome. And we'll talk more about that too, but that's the idea as well, is going and getting it out of you, getting that stress out of you in a healthy and productive way. And professionals are designed and geared and ready to help you with a lot of great resources. All right, next slide, please. All right, so another thing that we can do pretty easily for our stress is soothing with our 5 senses. And again, things pretty simple, right? But when we're talking about a stress response is a natural process in our body. So we need to attack it or combat it with natural processes in our body. And so our 5 senses are designed and geared in order to either keep us alert or help us to balance out. So think about your 5 senses right now. So we know we have seeing, we have hearing, we have tasting, we have touching, and we have smell. All right. And so let's do an activity right now where I want you to take a moment. You can even shut your eyes if you'd like, or keep them open, look off to the distance, whatever you'd like. But just take a moment and get comfortable, whatever that means to you. Put your body in a different position. If you need to stand up and stretch, I know we've been talking for a little hour, please do. But allow yourself just to kind of get grounded and comfortable. And then what I'd love for you to do is tune in right now and listen to what you hear. And I'll stop talking for a moment here so you can tune into any other sounds that are going on around you. If we're quiet enough, you can actually hear things that aren't normally heard, meaning that you might actually hear the buzz of your computer trying to cool itself off, or you might hear the garbage truck coming, or things like that. But just tune into what you hear for a moment. And so what you just did right there by tuning into what you hear, even if it's silence, and hearing the kind of peace of silence, you're allowing yourself to focus on a very, very small aspect where you aren't distracted or distressed. Because if you're trying to listen for something, or listen for anything for that matter, our brain isn't thinking about all of the other stuff that's going on. It's allowing us to tune in right into the moment and be very present. It's called being grounded, where we're actually, or being mindful even, of where we're not worried about the past, we're not worried about the present, we're really just focused on the here and now. So let's then do this with our sense of smell, and hopefully you all have good smelling stuff around you, but take a moment right now and just breathe in. I know we did this earlier. But just see if there's anything that you smell. You know, we get adjusted. Smell actually is the strongest sense that we have tied to memory. And again, from the service aspect, you might remember smells during your service if you were serving overseas and you actually do visuals or even auditory. The reason is that that sense of smell is tied to a part of our brain that's really, really, really engaged in memory. So think about smell right now, of what you actually are experiencing right now. Maybe the smell of your own cologne or laundry detergent, or you know, whether an animal in the room, whatever. But again, same idea. You're allowing yourself in the moment to really breathe in, experience that sense of smell. Smell also, since it is tied to memory, if we are allowing ourselves to feel relaxed in the moment and we couple it with a nice smell, we can actually anchor that as a good memory. So I'll say that in a different way. If you are consciously trying to get yourself relaxed and in a good place, and then you go and bake cookies, for example, that smell of baked cookies will then be attached to the idea of a nice smell, a nice relaxation. And so anytime that you bake cookies could actually trigger a memory of relaxation and feeling good. So you can think about that too, of little things that you could carry around, even of sense, you know, perfumes or aromatherapy oils too, things that actually give you a nice memory that are attached. And then taste too. I mentioned the home baked cookies earlier, but there are certain things that taste gives a taste is an interesting soother for us, meaning that it can be very positive when we're stressed out, where we can actually have something that changes our entire day around. When we taste mom's homemade bread or mac and cheese that she makes, it just brings us back to this really great experience. But taste also can be negative in that we will overeat to try to over comfort ourselves or even distract in the moment. If we think about it, food is actually the strongest relationship we have. What I mean by that is your mom is your food source before you even know she's your mama. So you're going to be very attached to certain foods that give a source of comfort. That can be, a positive thing when we're trying to bring ourselves into a relaxed situation. It can be negative if we overindulge. But think about that. Maybe if there's some certain foods or certain things that you enjoy that are really good tasting, that even for the moment you can just savor, allow yourself to slowly eat it in order to be present. Think of things too that you like to see. So we're in our homes right now, a lot of the time, a lot more of the time than we probably want to be, even at times. And so make sure that your environment around you is filled with things that you like to see, pictures, happy memories, artwork that you like, even cutting out pictures of or printing off pictures of vacations that you hope to take in the future when we're able to do that, and put them around so you're getting this good feeling, this experience of that there's some wonderful things around us that we like to see. Again, we're bombarded so much with the news a lot of the times too, and a lot of the news has very negative imagery attached to it. Our brain holds on to that negative imagery and creates a stronger source of stress. So why not combat that by putting wonderful things around us that we can see and really tap into? And I mentioned touch earlier too, and the self-soothing exercise that we were doing with tracing your palm, even breathing and putting your hand on your heart, allowing yourself to really tune into your body and feeling what feels good. Sitting out in the sun, does that feel good? Even going barefoot for a little bit outside, does that feel good? Taking a shower, taking a bath, fresh sheets on the bed, anything that feels good to the touch is also something that I would encourage you to be very conscious of, so that when you're in elevated time of stress, you can tune back into some of those things that can give you some relief. So again, 5 senses are a wonderful way in the moment for us to tune into being able to address our stress levels, but also are things that make our world a lot more full right now when we're tapped in. Next slide, please. All right, so here's a nitty-gritty stuff that actually is my favorite part to really talk about, since this is my line of work, being a cognitive behavioral therapist, is we have to check our thinking. And so our brain is so powerful. How we decide to think about our thoughts, and I do mean how we decide, is going to determine everything else that we experience. We know that before a feeling happens, before a behavior happens, before anything happens, there's a neuron that fires somewhere in the brain. That's a little, fancy brain cell that fires in the brain and creates a thought. Now, that thought, based on how we perceive that thought, is going to dictate and determine everything else around us. So I'll give you an example. Thought comes up, right? We're in a pandemic. Then my next perception of it could be, this is the worst thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. I hate every aspect of this. I'm so upset that I don't get to go anywhere that I want to actually go. I'm tired of wearing sweatpants every single day and not my really wonderful clothes that I enjoy wearing. I haven't seen my mom in over 6 months. You see where I'm going with this is like the thought process can have this life of its own. As I'm saying those things, the feeling I'm having in my body is stress, it's distress, it's anger, it's irritability. And so then what is my behavioral response going to be? Probably not a healthy thing, probably going to want to go take a nap and escape the world, or not be as productive. So our thoughts and our perception of those thoughts influence our entire experience of every single moment of our life and every single aspect of what we're doing during this heightened time of stress. So let's take that same example and look at it in a different way. So if I have this thought, okay, thought fires, there's a pandemic going on. Next thought, wow, I've never experienced this before. This is a pretty interesting opportunity for me to be able to look at new areas of my life that I can tap into. And if you don't mind going back to the last slide too, I'd appreciate it. Thanks. I know just got ahead of ourselves there. But if we look at the perception too, is what else can I do in this pandemic? Thank you so much. What else can I do in this pandemic? I can think about, well, let me see if I'm built from resilience to be able to handle these stressors that are placed upon me. So I'm going to look at this as a challenge, like a good challenge, of one that's actually going to make me stronger. Again, going back to your experience in the service as well, is think about that. If you reflect back on the events that have actually made you the strongest, developed your character, developed who you are as a person, they probably were experiences that you could have either gone a thought process of this being the worst thing in the entire world, or being, okay, game on, this is a challenge and I'm going to develop my character because of this. So our thoughts are so powerful in how we're getting through this. So what I encourage you to do is really tune in to what's happening with your thoughts. And I know a lot of people say, well, my thoughts just happen. They don't, I don't know, I don't have any control over it. Well, thoughts do happen, but the control aspect that you have is your perception. So how you're actually viewing that thought. So what I want you to do is think about a thought, or maybe a thought pattern that has caused more of a negative feeling in your life. Maybe something happened today, even, I don't know, I keep bringing up the news, but maybe watching the news and instantly have this sense of dread or hopelessness, or so if you think of that scenario, think of your thoughts and maybe think about how can you change that perception, not even necessarily making it positive, but maybe even making it neutral, and see what you come up with. We want to look at what is the evidence when you're having a very overwhelming thought that you actually should be having a negative thought. So again, the idea that we are in a pandemic and it's a really tough time, there's evidence for that. But whether or not we can handle that and whether or not we can grow from it and experience from it, that's all based in our own perception. So we want to look and see if there actually is some truth to the thought that we're having. If there isn't truth, then throw that thought out the window and come up with a new one. And if there is some truth to it, how can we change the perception to actually make it into something that is character building, or at least causing more of a neutral response in the body? The other thing too, you can ask yourself too, when you're having some of these thoughts, is this thought that I'm having going to matter 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Now, we can't tell the future, but we can kind of put it in a better perspective that way. So for example, I went to go mail something recently that I'm hoping to be delivered by the time that Christmas rolls around, and I got confirmation that they lost my package. So it was something that was a seemingly one-of-a-kind thing. I was really excited about the person that was going to get it, really wanted it to be there, went to the extra strides of getting it there before Christmas, and was really bummed, that it's not going to arrive by that time. Now, my thought process could go into, this is awful. I just disappointed my friend that I'm sending this to. I'm never going to be able to find a better gift than this. There goes my friendship, because obviously this was going to solidify that we're friends forever when I send this thing. And I could go in that spiral, or I can look at it and say, yeah, that's a crummy situation. I lost, the gift was lost. But you know what? 5 years from now, it's probably not even going to matter, because my intent behind sending that present was to brighten someone's day. And I'm sure that I can do that in another way and come up. And so I get my thoughts rolling in that pattern of what can I do that is still achieving my intention without it being in a negative. I'm gonna look over here at the thought here, or at the chat here. My thoughts: don't dwell on my negative feelings and thoughts, but focus on converting those negatives into positive. Absolutely. It's the other side of the coin, right? There's a technique that's sometimes used in therapy too, is I'll come into an office with clients and I'll hold a beach ball. We think about that beach ball, it has all these different strips of color that's all around it, right? And I could look at this beach ball and I see the strip of red in front of me, and I could be like, oh, red, I hate red, this is the worst red, can't believe that I have to stare at this red all day. Or I could just turn the beach ball and look, now I see blue. And so now I'm seeing blue and I like blue. So that's cool. The situation's the same. The beach ball is still the same, but I'm changing my perspective into something that I actually like, or something that is going to benefit me more. So thank you for adding that of, don't dwell on that negative feeling, turn that beach ball around, focus on that negative becoming a positive for you. And bottom line, with all of our thoughts, is the awareness is key here. So with awareness gives us an ability to change, ability to intervene, and ability to do something differently. When we think that our thoughts just happen to us, we're relinquishing our control. I work with, I mentioned earlier, I worked a lot with the military from a mental strength perspective of building a mentally strong, resilient mind. And the foundation of that is being able to know that your thoughts aren't you. Your perception is you. And so knowing that thoughts are automatically going to come up, do their thing, whatever, appear, your perception is your power and your control, your personality, your fortitude to be able to create your experience and how you want it to be. So any questions around this, feel free to message. We can dig a little bit deeper into this in the question and answer as well. But from a thought aspect, another tip I'll give you too is if you are waking up in the middle of the night or even during the day and having rumination where you're thinking, write all of those thoughts down without the intention of trying to problem solve. Just get them out. And then you're able to look at them and see where there might some other ways of looking at them. By being able to have something printed in front of you that has words to it, you can actually see where you might be able to shift some of the language, some of the word choice, or some of the perception into something new. I have another one here. I always fall into the contingency plan way of thinking, all the what ifs and how I am going to respond. My wife always is telling me to stop worrying about it. You don't even know that it's even going to happen. I always say, but it could, and I need to know what I'm going to do when it does. Thank you so much for sharing that. What you're describing is an extremely common mindset, especially among service members, because what are you supposed to do? Prepare for everything, right? As have a response for everything, always be ready, always be there and available to meet the needs and demands. So your mind has been conditioned to, I need to be ready for all and every possible scenario under the sun. So what I'll say to that is challenge yourself on that a little bit. Do you actually have the ability to prepare for absolutely every possible thing that could happen from this very second through the rest of your life? And I think consciously we know that's impossible, right? Is even if we don't know what's going to happen, then how on earth, or if we don't know what's going to happen, how on earth are we even going to prepare for any of that? Yep, good rule of thumb, don't worry about the things you have no control over. So, I think about this too in my own life, is because I'm a planner, is what do I want to have happen in the future? And let my thoughts rest there. What do I want to have happen in the future? But also know that I'm planning for what I want to have happen, as opposed to planning to be defensive of what I don't want to have happen. There's a lot more in this life that I don't want to have happen than what I do. Does that make sense? And so being able to then streamline my focus, if I'm going down that tangent of worry, of what do I want to prepare for that's good, that I'm happy about, then as opposed to all the things that could go wrong, helps us shift slightly over into that thought process is a little bit more positive. But I love what was written here too. A good rule of thumb, don't worry about the things you have no control over. We don't have any control over the future. We have control over how we respond now and how that might have the future occur in a different way. We know with certainty, and I can say this with certainty too, is what you do in you right now is going to be the biggest effect of how the future comes out. Meaning, if you're right now unhealthy and decide not to do anything about it, your future will be pretty dictated for you about what that's going to look like. If you're focused in the here and now and present about getting yourself health, getting yourself your needs met in a good way, really working on creating that healthy mindset and healthy body, you have a much better opportunity for your future to look how you want it to look. So very good. I appreciate the participation on that. Next slide, please. So when we're thinking about our thought process, another big component of this is how we're actually communicating with others. Right now, we know that communication is so important under our own roof, because we're spending a lot more time with our family members. We're spending a lot more time with people that are within our immediate safe circle of COVID-free individuals. That also means that we can fall into patterns of communication that can be very unhealthy, where we actually, if we're talking about stress and being more irritable, it means you're not the only one that's probably experiencing irritability at times. There's probably other people in your circle that are as well. And coming into communication together with heightened irritability or heightened responsiveness isn't always the most productive way of communicating. We know too that during times of stress, communication usually breaks down as a big indicator of things going awry. But it's also the most important thing. So back to service life is think about that. If your CEO is communicating something to you and you don't understand what the heck he or she is saying, how are you supposed to do your job? You'll actually be left with this feeling of, I need to do something and I have no idea how to do it, which creates stress. And so the same thing goes within our families as well, is we need to have really good communication so that the people around us know what to expect from us, but also we know that what we're saying is being heard in a good way. So let's break this down a little bit, is first of all, during times of stress like this too, we need to choose our content very carefully of what we're talking about. When we're someone mentioned earlier is that they see a mental health counselor to be able to do that data dump once a week of getting rid of those kind of thoughts or things that they're dwelling upon. That's fine. Use that appropriately. Is take whatever content you want and dump it in a place where it's supposed to go and be able to process it. That same sort of data dump, though, might not be best if you're doing that on your children, or might not be best if you're doing that on your significant other, because they don't have the tools or the resources to be able to handle that data dump. So we need to choose our content carefully. That doesn't mean that we don't talk about things that are important. We just need to understand that our intention of why we're communicating what we are. So, for example, if you're going to talk to your partner about being worried about finances, how you come into that conversation should be in a way that is focused on productivity and concern, meaning that I'm concerned about our finances and I'd like to figure out a way for us to feel better about them, as opposed to, we're broke, this is the end of the world, we're probably going to get kicked out of our home. So content can be really powerful no matter what it is, but our delivery and the direction that we're taking based on what we're really trying to communicate is really important. Being respectful and calm is also, of course, extremely, extremely important when we're communicating. And respect looks a lot of different ways for a lot of different people. But what I would encourage you to think about is, how do you feel most respected? If it's by having somebody yell and scream at you and call you names, then your definition of respect might need to be looked at again. But think about what your idea of respect is and how people address you. Maybe it's even looking you in the eye, addressing you by your name, telling you and informing you about what those your specific needs are. Being calm, when you're talking, of having a tone of voice that is calm. So when we're heightened stress times, we often don't think about our delivery. We think about just getting it out. And so when you're dealing with family members or people that are important to you in work and friendship environments, think about your delivery even more so than the content at times, because the delivery is going to set the tone for how your information is received. The other piece of communication is that there's two parts of it, right? There's the delivery of the message and there's receiving the message. And we often forget that communication doesn't just involve us getting heard. It actually involves us hearing others as well. So there's this back and forth availability for communication. Another example from the service too is, think about that. If you're getting radioed in and they're telling you do this, and you're radioing out and saying, I can't do this because of XYZ, let's come up with something else, that's communication. If they're radioing in and saying doing this and you don't have a radio, guess what? You're stuck in a situation where you don't actually have an opportunity to respond, be proactive, problem solve, express your needs. And so when we're dealing with other people, we need to listen to what they're actually saying to us so that we can actually deliver what their needs are. Being able to listen to what the tone is, what their message is, what they're coming out with as far as content. Also, being aware of nonverbal cues. So the majority of our language, or majority of our communication, is actually nonverbal when we think about it. So it's not words. It's not actually even our content or tone of voice too. It's actually the nonverbal. So it's the eye contact, it's the posturing, it's the, you know, the if you have a teenager, it's the eye roll they give you when they're disagreeing with you but don't want to tell you directly. You know, it's the disinterest of, well, somebody's talking to me but I'm on my phone this entire time. You know, it's all of those nonverbal cues are also setting the tone for communication that we need to be aware of. So best way for you to deliver a message is to be very, very direct with somebody, is having a posturing that is similar to theirs, keeping the eye contact. If you're a parent trying to talk to your kid, get down on their level. It's actually like get down on their knees if they're a short person, you know, or sit at a table so that your eyes are the same, because that creates an even playing field. It's actually a tip for when you're working on teams as well, is that if you're trying to create a feeling of anxiety, then the person talking should posture up and should be above everybody else. If you're trying to create a feeling of relaxation, productivity, and figuring out solutions, everybody needs to be on the same page. What I love about a virtual environment like this is that we are all on the same page. You know, you can choose to turn on your camera or not, but all of our pictures are going to be about the same size. All of us are having about the same sort of amount of our head and body space showing too. So we're level and we're more receptive to getting a message, but also to giving a message as well. Also being kind, you know, this goes a long way too, is that even if we're upset about something, still trying to be kind in the process, I think is a big component of remembering that we're all in this together. This is one of the rare times in history that every single one of us is experiencing a same stress. It doesn't mean that we're experiencing it in the same way, but we are experiencing the same stress. And so we have to remember too, is that even if we have other people that are responding to stress differently than us and even communicating in a different way, we're all going through the same thing. We really are. I think one of the things that's wonderful about Calvet and also having this community that you all have is that you all have been through unique experiences, but similar experiences. So there's a language that's known. There's kind of a brotherhood, sisterhood that's known. We're creating that right now during this pandemic as well, is that we all are going through this. And if we can look at it as this is connecting us as opposed to dividing us, there's a kindness that actually is elevated. Silence in communication is huge as well. So silence can be golden. The old phrase is allow there to be spaces in your communication. Now, I'm a fast talker and I talk for a living too. So this is one that I have to remind myself of quite a bit, is to pause, you know, is to allow your message to sink in so that other people can hear it. And we're allowing ourselves to really pause and just experience that silence. It's literally letting that message kind of sink into your brain, as opposed to just throwing messages and hoping that something sticks along the way. So being comfortable with that silence and allowing it to be there and be present. I'm going to look over in the chat here real quick because I saw something pop up here. Make peace with your past so it doesn't affect the present and the way you interact with others. Also, to not worry about what others think about you. Do what is best for you and your loved ones. You're in charge of your own happiness. Yeah, beautifully, beautifully said. And this goes right in alignment with what we're talking about with the thought process earlier, but also with communication. Make peace with your past so it doesn't affect now. If you're dealing in a family situation, again, where you're under the same roof for an extensive period of time, now is not the time to throw things from the past into the present. Now is the time to really focus on, what do you want now to look like? What do you want now in the future to look like in your family, so that you can be strengthened? From the mental health perspective, is that this is a challenging time for relationships. They're either getting extremely strong because people are using this idea of, let's not let the past be what's guiding us, but let's let now be an opportunity for us to redefine our relationship, redefine our closeness. Those are the people that are coming out really strong. Relationships that are not doing so well are the ones where they now have the time and space to relive everything that their partner did wrong in their entire life, and they're telling them about it. And so you know, you're having a lot of toxic communication when that's coming up. So I love what you said, Shane, of being able to make peace with your past. That includes other people, so that we can really interact now in a productive and happy way. Next slide, please. So this brings us to a point that I want all of us to really spend some time reflecting on right now, is the power of gratitude. So with what we've learned so far is we know that our body is already predisposed to be wired to be negative. We know our body is predisposed to be wired to be in a fight or flight response. We know that we are in a time where there is a ton of negativity around us that we can grab onto. We also know that we are facing new challenges that none of us have ever experienced before in ways where we don't feel prepared. And we also know that we don't really know with certainty what the future is going to look like. So all of that being our daily experience means that we need something really, really big in order to combat and change that perception we're talking about. And that's gratitude. So with gratitude, what definition of gratitude is being thankful, being able to tune in and be thankful and be mindful of what is going well, what is an opportunity, what has already been a blessing to you, and what continues to be a blessing in your life. Power of gratitude is so amazing on the brain, because there's actually been studies where when people are gracious, where they actually think about things that they're thankful for, there's different parts of the brain that light up a whole lot differently than when people think about negative things. It's really, really interesting studies. But showing gratitude actually shows that those parts of the brain that light up help to ward off a lot of illness, not just mental illness, but actual physical illness as well. When you get those brain centers activated, you're actually helping to ward off inflammation in your body. You're actually helping in some aspects with your memory too, and so many other positive benefits too. So when we talk about saying thanks, and we're coming off of a time of Thanksgiving here as well, the power of gratitude can be really implemented into our lives in the daily to allow us to shape our entire physical experience, our mental experience, and our spiritual experience too. So I want you to pause right now and just think for yourself of 3 good things that you've already experienced today. And if you want to say this wonderful workshop can be one of them, that's a hint for you. But think of 3 things that were good. And I'll actually pause and be quiet for a moment where you can reflect on that. And if you do want to share, you're welcome to put it in the chat as well. But think of 3 things, and they can be big things. They can be, I'm so thankful that I woke up and my family's all healthy today. Or they can be little ones, is I'm so happy I had my glass of whatever that cup of death coffee or whatever was suggested earlier. Maybe that was the highlight of your day. But think of something that you've experienced that's been good. I mean, I'm thankful, that I got all my laundry done yesterday too, so I didn't wake up to a pile that I tripped over. So that was a good thing that happened for me today. But think about that. And then think about one thing now that you're looking forward to for tomorrow. And I know we just said that we can't predict the future, but think about one thing that you're looking forward to, meaning that if it happens tomorrow, cool, awesome. You're going to be so excited and happy about it. Maybe it's even just looking forward to that it's Friday and then it's going to be the end of the work week for some of us, or that you have something planned in the evening, But this little inventory, again, is very, very important, because this sets the tone for our entire experience for how we operate throughout the day. So in addition to all the techniques that we've talked about so far, of even just the basics of breathing, of grounding, of giving yourself a moment of mindfulness, this is probably, out of anything, the most important thing that you can do throughout the day and remind yourself to do. So this would be another good thing for you to do. Set those reminders in your phone. So maybe when those reminders are going off and you're checking your breathing and checking your posture, you think of a couple good things that have happened already and something that you're looking forward to. You can even use your senses that we talked about, the 5 senses, to come up with something of, if you smell something, maybe it just rained and the smell is really good, that can be another fantastic thing for you to do. Someone just shared here, my gratitude and appreciation for this excellent stress management webinar. Well done. I'll practice and expand. Thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate that. And that was the intention of today too, is that even just this amount of time that we are been able to spend together, that we're really using it as an opportunity to be thankful that we have these resources available to us. The presenters earlier have provided a ton of wonderful resources that y'all can look into as well, and be very thankful that these are available to you. Even just having the idea of, I'm looking at the screen here and seeing all the different people that have logged in today. Each one of those people are doing a login today because they want something good for themselves and want something better for their community as well. And that's pretty encouraging to know that that so many of you are really excited and hopeful about your experience right now too. So the power of gratitude is huge, and this would be, again, a reflection that I would absolutely encourage you to do every single day in order to start your day and encourage you throughout the day to be able to stay on track as well. I think that's the last slide, if I'm correct. Oh, quick review, there we go. So with all that we talked about, because I know we covered a lot today, and we'll be able to get in, deeper into some question and answer period here too. Once you think about one thing that you learned from today's discussion, hopefully there's more than one thing, but at least one thing that you learned from today's discussion. So really think about that. If you want to share it, fantastic. Oh, I see some other people being thankful over here too. Great, thankful for the webinar, being grateful for my blessings, having my friends and family. Lovely, thank you for sharing that too. Grateful for another sunny day today. Absolutely. Thank goodness for California. But think about one thing that you might have learned from today's discussion. If you want to, put that in the chat, you're welcome to, or reflect on something that you're going to do from this seminar or from what you've learned today and incorporate it into your life today. Maybe it is tonight if you're going to get your sleep on a better schedule, or maybe tomorrow you're going to cut down on the amount of coffee, or maybe I see in here, effective communication skills, learn the beach ball analogy. Awesome, really like that too. Looking forward to tomorrow's Friday. Love it, love it. And we have health, 2 successful meetings accomplished, and my nephew. Wonderful. I love where this is headed, is you all are having your mindsets in a really great shift of being able to focus on positive. So going back to this is name one thing that you've learned from today's discussion for yourself, and what you're going to do within the next couple of days, next week, of a skill that you're going to then put into practice. So we have to put an intention behind this too, rather than just saying this was a nice workshop. I heard some stuff of, it's what you do with that stuff that's actually going to be producing the most change. So put an intention. Say, by, I don't know, Wednesday of next week, so it gives you a good week. Wednesday of next week, I'm going to have made my list of all the things that I could do to keep myself preoccupied if I'm stressed. Or by the weekend, I'm going to have my playlist of all my Jimi Hendrix songs that are available on my iPhone that I can then tap into if I need to relax. And then I'd also love for you to think of one person that you can talk and share something that you've learned today with. The idea here is that this is for you, but in the bigger picture, it's actually for our entire community. Of you're creating the change, is you being able to use what you've learned, but also share what you've learned to be able to create this widespread impact of people taking care of themselves, is going to spread faster than COVID itself, in all honesty. Of us being able to really spread our positivity and do it in a way that is going to be healthy and helpful for our entire community is imperative. And let's see. Oh, watch this webinar. Great. And thank you for the info. Mayor Holly's been wonderful. Well, I will leave it at that, unless there's anything else that people have specifically to ask, but we can go into the question and answer for anybody that is comfortable with that, and the other presenters I know can chime back in as well too. But thank you for your time, and thank you for your service too. And again, as I just really wish you the best health and well-being throughout this entire time.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. This is very rewarding, some very good information. I will tell you, for me, it was nice to understand the different stressor points on the body chart. And folks, we're going to share that that piece with the list and all the materials presented to you today. We're going to share them with all of you after today's program. But this has been great to help folks get through each day, right? Each day we can pick something from that list you shared, Doctor. And so I think everyone here is able to self-assess, and we're going to be able to look at different ways to cope with the bad days, whether it's the small things or the big things that stress us out on a day-to-day or whatever it may be basis. So thank you very much. Folks, we are going to open up for questions. We've been watching the chat, very great comments. Dr. Ross, and very, of course, an appreciation sent your way for this good information session. we're so grateful to have welcomed you today and your team, and of course, the National Guard and our Calvet link. So folks, we are going to open it up for questions. I am going to reach out to my team to see if they got any questions on their end separate from the chat. I don't know if I currently see any on our chat feature, but we've been having a great conversation and interactive exchange of our day-to-day, and so we are tracking all of the information. Anyone out there, Jose, do you have any questions that came in maybe through a separate chat? There we go.
Not at the moment, ma'am. No questions. But again, if folks want to utilize the chat feature or unmute themselves, this is the time to do so for any questions.
Wonderful. Okay, I do see what is the best way to get a COVID test. So I recommend that you visit your county website, and they will have specific location closest to your home. I don't know if kits have arrived to some locations, but the best way to find out where a center is at or when the first shots are available is through your county health department. So if you just Google your county health department, wherever you may be at, whether it's Sacramento County, for me it would be Yolo County, you can find some information there as well. All right, and we have contact information for our Red Cross partners. Otherwise, folks, I don't see any more information coming through. We are going to post this webinar on our website under our resources page. What we will go ahead and do is we'll send out the materials we have presented today, and then once the link is up on the website, we'll notify you as well. Otherwise, I think we are good for today. Make sure you share this information with folks out there, and any materials that come your way, feel free to share them as well. We're here to be at your service. At Calvet, reach out to us anytime, and we'll help get you the resources that you need and help answer any questions you may have today and moving forward. Have a safe holiday, folks. We got some good information from our leadership earlier this week as far as taking extra precaution out there, whether you're fixing a light bulb, putting up a Christmas tree, of course, driving, be extra careful, because as our hospitals are filling up, you could potentially end up in a hospital outside your county, and so it's going to be very rough out there if you get hurt. So be extra careful. Have a safe holiday. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.